Yeah.
Hi, Zeina.
Hello, Marco.
I'm calling here from Montclair, New Jersey. And where are you?
I'm located in Switzerland between Lausanne and Geneva on the riverside, on the lakeside, I should say.
Very nice. It sounds
Geneva.
great. And would you mind just introducing yourself, what your name is, and what you do?
Sure. So, first of all, thank you for having me here, Marco. It's really a great pleasure to connect and to have
You're
the
welcome.
opportunity to speak about our common passion, I would say. So my name is Zena. I'm based between Lausanne and Geneva in a little village overlooking the lake and in the middle of the vineyards. What I do for the longest time, my whole career spanned in marketing communications, branding, building brands, scaling businesses, advising companies on their positioning, but also how to enter new markets and to scale their business. That's really in a nutshell, but there's a lot more that we can explore, which is also my sustainability consultancy practice and my NGO. Um, I can say curiosity has led me to do many things in my life from a professional standpoint. So,
And I know you have an Muslim background. You've been traveling a lot all over the world. Would you mind touching a little bit about your background and where in the world you have been moving around throughout your career?
sure. So, I'm of Lebanese origin. I grew up in the UAE and I've been living in Switzerland for approximately 15 years now. My corporate job took me pretty much all over the world. My last role was a global marketing director for a very niche but dominant company in B2B and B2G, B2G being business to government.
Got it.
And
Okay.
I was responsible for all of the segments of this company and worldwide. And we had 36 offices across the world. So anywhere from Latin America to North America, Europe, Asia, Africa, Middle East. So I've pretty much worked in every continent. Um, and before that, I was also, I mean, one of the specific area in Asia that is very close to heart is Nepal. I had the opportunity of going on a personal mission there that turned out into creating an NGO that I was managing for more than 12 years. So, voilà.
And like it sounds like you've definitely seen a lot of the world and met a lot of different diverse people. And yeah, but I would love to hear more about your foundation a little bit later. So now I wanted to jump into how do we know each other and how long have we been in touch for? And could you touch a little bit more about how we started working together?
Sure. So when I said that curiosity has always been the red thread of my life, in 2017, I stopped the corporate world for a while and I set up a consultancy practice in sustainability, but also a holistic health coaching practice. And this is where I reached out to you, Marco. So that was in 2017. And I found you through Upwork.
Yeah.
And the reason why you stood out amongst all of the other people I had reached out to, I needed a graphic design. I needed someone to help me build a brand. I had an idea, I had a direction, um, a strategic direction, and the people I wanted to speak to, but I had no idea how to translate this into actual tangible brand and tangible communication mean. And the way I reached out on Upwork was very on the headlines. I really gave, you know, few bullet points, and I wanted to understand the person in front, if they would grasp the level of depth and support that I needed to develop the brand. And that was you. And this is how we started working together, because you immediately understood what it meant to work with someone who needed more than a logo, who needed more than a graphic design, but needed an in-depth and almost a sparring partner.
Yeah, I
So
remember. I think we jumped on a video call. Did we jump on a video call? That was before Zoom, but we jumped on Google Meet or Skype or something.
that's
I
correct.
think so. Yeah.
It was in 2017 now, 8 years ago.
Yes. It has to be Skype probably.
I can't even remember myself, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. It was definitely a long time ago, and I think I mean, as far as I'm concerned, from someone who really needed to develop a brand, and what was difficult at that moment, it was a personal brand. So my whole life, I've worked to develop brands for corporates where you still have a certain detachment. But when it comes to personal, I think you need someone who is able to read between the lines and push you a little bit further in your thought process, but also in your boldness and looking at the blind spots, revealing some
Yeah.
blind spots about how you're positioning yourself.
And can you tell us a little bit on what that brand stood? Uh, what were you trying to sell as a service or product at that time in 2017?
Yeah, so that back then we developed a brand called Live Your Vision, and it was all about empowering people to become the boldest, most authentic version of themselves through holistic support in movement, in nutrition, and in emotional and mastery and understanding.
Okay.
And we developed 3 pillars within this brand. And the idea was to be able to sell this holistic support, but also to sell each pillar on its own according to who I was speaking to, because some people just needed the movement approach, some people the nutritional approach, and others just how to deal with their emotions.
Yeah.
So it was I think it was a challenging exercise because there was an all-encompassing brand plus the 3 different pillars that needed to be represented.
Yeah. Do you remember what the biggest challenge was when you say that there was a challenge for you building a personal brand? What were the roadblocks for you to, or for us to really get to the final result?
I think it's so as much as a brand is an emotional connection with your customer, but it was the emotional connection. I had to be detached emotionally from the offering. So obviously it was me, and it was bringing a passion and a knowledge to the market, but the ownership was to the people who will receive it. So sometimes I had to sit back and listen to you, to your advice on the colors, on the shapes, because when we're too emotionally involved, it's just about what I like and what I don't like, as opposed to what I like and what works. And this is what you brought in, is the expertise, knowledge of what works in terms of graphics, in terms of colors, in terms of positioning, which I probably didn't have enough distance to see it clearly.
Yeah, I think that's one pitfall a lot of people fall into, even also companies, that they design a company logo, brand, look and feel that they like. but that sometimes is not the same thing as your customers or your target group likes. So sometimes you can actually have a brand that you don't like. You don't like your own brand, but that doesn't matter because you're not your own client.
Yeah.
Your clients will need to be connected to your brand. So, and that's sometimes hard not to crack for business owners to have a brand that they don't really feel connected to, but that makes sense if they themselves are not really the target group. Um, and that's specifically a challenge in personal brands because you want to like your own brand, but sometimes maybe you're working with somebody that is completely different than you. So it needs to resonate with that group.
Yes,
Um,
I agree, but I wouldn't go that far, Marco. I think you still need to like your brand and own it
yeah,
and feel connected to it. But sometimes it's probably the expression of it that is a bit challenging and it pushes you towards your edges.
yeah, yeah. Um, so then I'm gonna jump 6 years. So then we jump from 2017, 18 to 2024.
Yes,
And can you explain what happened there and how we started to work together again?
again. So the brand that we developed together, Live Your Vision, um, really had a very strong impact on people. Um, as I was saying, I connected to the brand. I loved it. I wouldn't have visualized this at all, but it was a very straight to the point emotional connection with the audience and the people. So they really liked it. And it was across geographies and across culture. So people really, I mean, it was a very understandable and emotionally easy to connect with as a brand. And then in 2020, I went back to the corporate world for 4 years. And when I quit again my corporate job in 2024, there was a new venture that I was launching, which is a lot of mentoring and coaching with youth and putting to contribution towards youth and women my whole corporate career that spanned over 26 years and global on the global scale. And then I thought of you again because I wanted to develop another approach. And I did reach out to other marketing agencies, but none of them really grasped it. None of them really understood this fine balance between bringing a lot of myself as a person, but also a lot of the corporate world and the corporate journey. So it was either focusing on the corporate journey or focusing on myself, but I needed something that really blended both. And this is when I reached out to you again, and because I remembered the great collaboration and the exchange that we had for Live Your Vision.
Nice. And how is your new brand different from the first one? And how would you explain the process?
Okay, so it's different in the sense that the other one was really focusing much more on the whole yoga, emotional mastery, and nutrition aspect. And this new one is more aspirational and much more, well, it's called inspired by the future. So, how can today we be drawn to the future and what the future holds for us, basically?
Yeah,
And the whole process was, again, with much more maturity on either side, like we did for Live Your Vision. So, basically, hey, Marco, this is where I'm at with my journey today.
yeah,
How can you help? How can you support? What do you see can be done or not? And it was really an advisory journey between one another. you and I on all the call and the conversation on how we could build not only the brand, but the offering. And rightly so, when it came to copywriting and really developing the content, both times, whether with Live Your Vision or with Inspired by the Future, you recommended great people to work with.
Yeah, so we collaborated with a communication coach called Corinna, and she was kind of focusing on the content. So we had some sessions where Corinna was there, and I was there, and you were there, and I think back on those sessions as really inspiring. And we did run into some dead ends, and then we came out of it, and then we went into some direct. Initially, you wanted to call it, I believe, your name, and then we ended up on Inspired by the Future.
Yes, correct.
Um, how what was it? Was it? Do you remember the process as straightforward, or do you remember the detours we took?
No, there were a lot of detours. There was obviously a lot of personal involvement from my end and a lot of vision. But as we moved into a deeper understanding, you and Karina obviously took me to my limits in terms of, you helped me rethink differently what I had in mind initially. So definitely that wasn't a straightforward process because there was some resistance, there was some dancing, there was some understanding from your end. Maybe there was also on my end a lack of clarity, which you guys helped me sift through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that you're willing to get on Zoom calls and really have some good. I think that's, for me, that's really where the work is happening. Yeah, I can stay working on design and colors, but I think the core work, the process is really in those calls, because that's where we come out and we find out where is it that you feel that you want to be, and where are the kind of the areas that we need to develop. And so I remember back on those Zoom calls is really inspiring and just a lot of energy, and but very, very key to the process. I couldn't do this process without those calls. So those are very key to the process.
I'll give you an example, and that goes back way before we met. In 2007,
Yeah.
I took on a job in the UAE for a large company where I was building a city. We were building a city of 150,000 population. Okay.
Oh, well.
And I was responsible for the marketing, the communication, the branding, and creating the whole experience. And the biggest challenge was selling plots of land and selling apartments on plans. Nothing was being built. So we had to build a whole branding on something that was a vision. And actually, one of the marketing agency that I was working with had really a lot of trouble visualizing and understanding this vision. So where we really had a blockage, I actually ended up inviting them on the construction site, showing them so much, spending time with the engineers, with the constructors, with on the ground so that they could grasp what it was about. So this is where I'm saying again, the branding and the marketing communication is much more than a drawing, is much more than just 2 or 3 sentences. But if you really want a brand that resonates and that withstand time, I think we as a client need to help you a lot also as a developers and as a graphic or agency.
Yeah, I very much agree that you need to be as invested in the process as the company or the designer. And sometimes I run into clients that want to send an email with 10 lines and expect a cohesive, compelling brand. and they don't have time to get on a Zoom call, and I'm saying I cannot work with you because you need to be invested and spend time, and that is like that's very key to have that time.
Absolutely.
And yeah,
Absolutely.
nice. I appreciate you taking us through those processes, and it was a fun. Both projects were fun and were also very different. Um,
Yes.
so I would like to hear a little bit. I'm really fascinated about your foundation in Nepal. Would you share a little bit about how that came about and the process of working on that? You said for about 12 years.
12 years, yeah. So basically, it all came out of a random climb I undertook in the Himalayas. And well, when I was there, I connected with the Sherpa community. And at that time, I was living in the UAE, in Abu Dhabi. And
Okay.
uh, on my way back from that climb, I found out that one of the Sherpa teenagers was battling cancer, and he was orphan. And
Okay.
me being a young mom, I really felt connected and thought that I could not go back to my everyday life knowing that he's in that situation and not do anything to help
Yeah.
out. So this is the birth of Smile for Hope, and initially it was really just to support this young man who was 15 back then, Mingma Sherpa.
Okay.
But unfortunately, when he passed away, no, unfortunately, he passed away and we couldn't do anything for him, but I couldn't leave it there. So I decided that I wanted to do more for the children of Nepal. And my contact at that time said, okay, Zeina, if that's what you want to do, we have to create an NGO in Nepal. So this is how it all started.
Okay.
And for 12 years, we did a lot of work with the underprivileged children from remote parts of Nepal. It was all around health, holistic health and support. Where it all started for the youth, it also expanded to women. And during the earthquake in 2015, we also did a lot of work of relief
Yeah.
and emergency intervention work. And one of the aspects that was very important for me is the branding and the values and the logo and everything that Smile for Hope was portraying. So it was, as the name says it, you know, Smile for Hope,
Yeah.
a positive, uplifting mission that had to be translated by the brand as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Sounds very inspiring, and it was interesting to hear how you met that Sherpa and started the whole foundation, and it's still around, the foundation, right?
It is still around.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
still alive indeed. Yeah. Mm.
Very nice. And then one thing I also want to touch on now, I know you're very interested in working with young people and doing a mentorship and like really helping young people get onto the right track.
Yes.
Would you tell us a little bit about your passion for working with young people and where you see that go in the future?
It all again. Things start very organically in my life, and it started very organically with my own boys who are
Yeah.
now 17 and 19. I basically, you know, really we grew up. They grew up very close to me, so we have a very good
Yeah.
relationship. And a lot of their friends were always at home, so it was a lot of curiosity about their life, what they're struggling with, and I ended up discovering that not only them, but when I also worked for a university and I was mentoring students there.
Yeah.
So I realized that between the age of 12, 14 to 22, 25, this youth, I mean, they're super sensitive, they're very smart, they're very connected, they have a lot of questions, but rarely have anyone to turn to, because parents is usually not who you want to turn to.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need a psychologist or a psychiatrist. You just need somebody who can help you navigate the world of emotion, of transformation. They're going through a lot of transformation at this point. As much as it's a very social time, it's also a very lonely time, because there's a lot of comparison with the friends. There's a lot of competition. They need their friends. They don't know how vulnerable they can be. And there's also the whole pressure of social media.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on for these young people. And I was really, and I am still really engaged about helping them just make sense of everything that's going on, and them to realize that actually they have a lot in them that they can use to navigate those times, but it's just how to steer correctly
Yeah.
the wheel of their own life, and how important it is for them to be empowered and to be their own compass, going
Yeah.
back to really feeling and understanding, and not constantly doubting themselves.
Yeah, definitely. Social media is a whole new beast that we didn't grow up with. So if you think back on Senna that was 15 years old, do you have any advice you would give her in terms of how to get onto the right track, or just really how to go about life when you're 15, 16?
Yeah, I think honestly, I think the main advice we forget to give them is really to trust themselves,
Yeah.
and to there's always this little spontaneous voice. They know, they deep inside they know, but because of the sense of belonging, because of wanting to be part of a bigger group, they will sometimes shut that intuition down to be part of others. For example, I don't feel like going out tonight, or I don't want to do this,
Yeah.
but none of my friends want to watch a movie. They all want to go to a nightclub, but I don't feel like it. So
Yeah.
how not to how not to override yourself just to be part of the group,
Yeah.
if it makes sense.
It makes sense to basically listen to yourself. Like that's something I'm still learning to do. I think most people are learning to trust that instinct and not override it, because there's a lot of pressure to override what you feel and what you think and your intuition. So
I think you and I, Marco, come from a generation where we were taught to override all of this. And today, um, with the world being what it is, if often asked myself, what legacy would I like to leave behind to my children, my two boys? If
yeah.
anything, it's just about them knowing that they have the resilience, the agility, the strength to bounce back. And all of this comes from trusting yourself and listening to your inner
Yeah.
compass. And how do I every day try to clear the ground to go back to really my unique expression, because we're all unique and we're all part of this bigger puzzle. And I cannot be you. As much as I want to try to be you, I will never be you. You will never be somebody else. So it's how to trust this guidance towards you being you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think the younger generation are a little bit better at doing that than our generation. I agree that they learn a lot about mindfulness and like believing what you want to do and just trusting what you want to do, make decisions. I think they are better equipped at that at this time. But
Yes,
then they have social media. So
exactly. So yeah.
yeah, okay. So I wanted to hear a bit more about where's your new chapter. What are you going to focus on now in your professional life? Who are you going to serve? Who are you going to help? What kind of activities will your new chapter entail?
So now my focus is always on, it's still on the corporate. I advise, C-suites and small and medium companies on marketing, business growth, sustainability, and I really blend my passion for people, for marketing, with my corporate experience and expression, and bringing this to the service of people who have high stake decisions to make, or people who need an aspiring partner. It can be a CEO, or it can be a recently appointed leader of a team who needs to restructure or to navigate across transformation across culture or from one business to another. The world is going through a lot of changes, and I think we cannot do it alone anymore. We never could, but now more than ever, I think the secret lies in collaboration and breaking down silos and being in an open communication, and rather collaboration rather than competition.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If you should describe kind of your core ideal client that you would be in the best position to help, who would that be? What kind of person would that be? And what kind of challenge would that person have?
So the person, it's a CEO who is either in a scale up or in a startup. So startup, scale up mainly, um, with the major challenge of building a brand, but building also a team that delivers on this brand.
Yeah.
So who am I? What do I stand for? Or my product, how do I bring this to the market? How do what is the translation of my product into the market? How do I bring it to life, basically?
Okay.
How do I market it? And how do I build a team that helps serve the growth? So that's one segment, and the other segment is, like I was mentioning, transformation, going through scaling up or a transformation, and realizing that what was true until now is not true anymore, and that we need to bring some changes. But what are those changes?
Got it. And what are the processes, frameworks, tools that you're bringing to the table to help them through that transition?
So first of all, it's really an audit and sitting down together and understanding what works, what doesn't work, what are the roadblocks, what are the low-hanging fruits, where can we start immediately, what are the tools also that we have at stake. I think it's really important to work with the current situation and the current tools. Sometimes a 2 millimeter change makes a big difference. But what is
Yeah.
this 2 millimeter change that will really help on the long run? So it's really identifying, and then it's really identifying what makes the true difference as opposed to the others, and capitalizing on the strength while working on, I wouldn't say the weaknesses, but the shortfalls or the dead ends.
Yeah. Okay. So it's really focusing on the core and how to get to that level position in the best way. So it's very much a collaboration.
It's a collaboration. It's also really staying authentic. I think authenticity has always had a win in the situation. It's really to be authentic with who we are and how we manage.
Yeah. Great. So towards the end, I would like to have your take on the current state of design paired with the new wild technology called AI. What are your thoughts about where we stand now as in the marketing, branding, design world, and what are your thoughts on AI?
Okay, so obviously we cannot, negate the impact of AI and the amplitude that it has taken. As a marketing myself, I do use AI as a tool. I do not use AI as an enabler. Somehow it's like, internet. Internet gives you information, but doesn't give you a solution. And where I see that we from the marketing and the communication world have to be really careful with AI is that there is absolutely no humanity in it. There's no human connection. So yes, it gives you a lot of information. It can give you direction. It can give you cues, but it's not the end answer. And we were talking about authenticity.
Yeah.
I've tested AI with my youth, and they will immediately tell you this is AI generated. This doesn't,
Okay.
yeah, this doesn't sound human. So it's very interesting to see that even the people who are born with and under AI have a filter towards it. So I think AI can stay a good tool, but not an enabler.
Yeah. Okay. It's very interesting that they can detect that
Yeah,
uh, by reading it, by looking at images.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is. So I guess there's still there's still a spot for humans for a little bit
And
in
I
terms
think
of
it'll become stronger and stronger.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as a human, we have taken this whole era of AI and automatically generated content a bit further than and it's put a distance between us as a human and how we connect to things and yeah, and the output.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Great. I think it's been very fascinating talk so far. So here towards the end, I just wanted to ask: is there anything that I haven't asked about that you would like to touch on? So basically, a clean slate. Anything you want to share with the audience, or any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think basically just as a wrap up is like you like to put it also, Marco, human centric design, human centric approach. And as a marketeer myself, I think my major success is staying close to people and close to understanding my market. And at the end of the day, no matter where we are as a human being, we are all driven but by the same underlying values. So so I think I'm very, very hopeful for the fact that we are all going back to a bit more connection, humanity, and less of competition and scarcity.
Yeah. But if there's one thing I want to ask, because you have a diverse background, you've been traveling all over the world. Uh, do you see like one thread that connects all of us? Do you see one like we have different cultures, we have different languages, we have different customs. But in your opinion, what is the main thread between all of us that we sometimes forget about?
Love and life.
Yeah,
Everybody needs to feel loved and to feel accepted and recognized, and all of us want to have the best possible life,
yeah,
within the circumstances that we have. And we sometimes tend to forget that somebody who's just brushing us off or being aggressive is just out of a lack of love or happiness, but we all strive for the same things, regardless of a culture, regardless of the language that we speak. We want love, we want connection, we want happiness,
yeah.
and a good life.
I think that couldn't be a better note to end on. Like, we all need love and connection, and human connection is really at the core of what humanity is about. So,
Absolutely.
Sen, I really appreciate your time. I love that you are basically my first podcast guest, and I
Great.
think this was really great, and it was very inspiring to hear
Thank you.
about your journey.
It was an
So,
honor to be with you,
thank you so
Mark.
much, Sen. I appreciate it.
Thanks for everything.